the thing that keeps you up at night, the thing that keeps people trapped in cults for 10 years. It stops you from starting that dream business or going for that dream job. Fear. Hello. Welcome to another episode of BigTalk. I'm your host here, Aben, and today we're going to be talking about the emotion of fear and how it is a bridge between love and hate. So without further ado, let's get into it. It's been reported that the most common mental illness here in the United States is anxiety disorders. Nearly 20% of the population reports some form of anxiety. And as we know, anxiety is simply a mild form of fear. Fear, the thing that keeps you up at night, the thing that keeps people trapped in cults for 10 years, or prevents people from leaving abusive relationships. It stops you from starting that dream business or going for that dream job. And we all want to throw it away. We want to destroy it. We want to be, quote unquote, fearless. But by popular definition, this means the lack of an emotion or the absence of the emotion, right? We want to suppress it. But I think that oftentimes we fail to see the power in our emotions, namely the power in fear. By definition, fear is, and I quote, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. Right? It's the belief that something is dangerous. So I'd like to talk about fear in three different aspects. First, we'll talk about the physical side of fear, then the emotional side, and lastly, the spiritual side. But first, let me give my definition of fear, right? It starts with time, right? This law of nature, we'll call it, that's designed to give meaning and purpose to anything and everything that happens in this dimension, that happens in life, right? Fear for me is a call to action. It's designed to make you immediately aware and immediately conscious of the world around you so that you can make a decision, right? It's your ego saying, hey, there is something that is trying to destroy me, that's trying to destroy or change my habits, my way of life, who I am, right? When something threatens you, threatens your identity, threatens your presence, threatens your existence, this emotion comes up and makes you conscious to make you choose on, hey, is this a threat? Do I need to fight? Do I need to change this dynamic? Do I need to switch things up? But it's essentially an emotion that makes you aware and makes you say, hey, here is a potential problem. You decide if it's a problem, and if it is a problem, you need to act on it. That's really it. It's just an alarm. It's a sign of a glitch in the matrix, right? So from a physical standpoint, this can be an animal attack. It could be a car coming at you, right? All physical things. And fear does a really good job of heightening your senses from a physical standpoint, right? We see clearer, we track better with our eyes, we breathe better, we feel stronger, right? We think quicker, we move faster, etc., etc. But it's important to note that these changes are not evidence of an actual threat. They are simply a preparatory measure in case of a threat to your identity. That identity being, from a physical standpoint, your life. And it's up to you, the individual, to evaluate and decide on if the object or the situation is in fact a threat, or if it's simply a false alarm. Don't waste your time. It's foolish to waste your time trying to turn this alarm off, right? To try to beat fear, to try to cut it out of your life, to be fearless, let's say by popular definition. Because it's nearly impossible. It's an innate emotion. It's part of you, and it has good. It is, again, simply an alarm. Instead, what I suggest is learn how to respond when the alarm sounds, right? If I can't turn the alarm off, I can change what is sounding the alarm, and I can change my actions when the alarm sounds. Simply put, learn how to control and master your fear. And this is how, the great Mike Tyson became such a successful athlete, he became a champion in boxing. this is how he did it, right? His coach, Customato, understood these principles, right? He understood how important and powerful fear was. There was a book written about, his psychological teachings by a gentleman named Remus Bailey. The book is entitled The Customato Mind. Again, this book is about the psychological teachings that Customato used to make Mike Tyson a champion. An excerpt from this book reads, "All people are afraid. Being afraid is a normal thing. Fear is our best friend. And it's something that must be controlled. Fear, like fire, must be controlled. Once it's uncontrolled, like fire, it will destroy everything around it. But once you learn to control fear, like fire, you can make it work for you. The fighter who controls his fear can now function in a manner far over and beyond anything he was capable of before." So I say this. Don't try to be fearless in a notion of the absence of the emotion or lack thereof. Be fearless in the notion of the recognition of the origin of an emotion, right? Recognize why you're feeling the emotion of fear, being the problem or situation at hand, and make a calm and conscious decision whereby imposing control of the emotion. Now, as for the emotional side of fear, in my opinion, this is probably the most debilitating form of fear, right? We're talking about fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear of ridicule, not fitting in, being judged, right? The fear of failure, fear of seeming inadequate or feeling inadequate. Right? All these are manifestations of fear, right? And though these emotions may seem to be constant in an individual's life, they, like all emotions, are temporary. They just appear to be constant because they're experienced so often. And no action has been taken to shift the thought process into one that does not experience this emotion so often. That being said, remember that fear is simply an alarm, a call to action, to examine a situation for potential threats to identity. So heed the alarm and examine yourself. So, for example, an individual who has a fear of, they have a fear of failure. They may ask themselves, am I not starting this business because I think it's a bad time in the market, or the logistics aren't strong enough to support growth? Or am I simply just afraid to fall on my face and disappoint loved ones or seem foolish to outsiders? Right? Is that the origin of my emotion, caring about what other people think? Maybe I should evaluate and work on myself. Maybe I shouldn't let opinions other than my own dictate my life. Right? So when this individual, starts to internalize this, message of, hey, I'm going to remove my mask and I'm not going to care about what other people think, they will feel fear in that, right? Because they actually are changing themselves. They are changing their identity. And fear, again, is just an alarm that there's a potential that your identity is being changed. But once this new identity, right, once this new way of thinking is adopted and held true, the alarm will no longer sound, as failure is no longer a threat to the individual's identity, right? Once I've changed who I am from person A to person B, right, I felt fear from the transition of person A to person B, because there is a change. But once I become person B, there is no alarm because I'm not changing from A to B anymore. I am B. Therefore, there is no fear. You see, fear is just an alarm. We should not turn it off or even try. It's nearly impossible. We should fix the issue that's causing the alarm, and the alarm will no longer sound. Snoozing the alarm is only running away from your fears, and they'll eventually catch up. If you examine and fix the issue, fear has nothing to alarm you on, and as such, it will not sound, whereby giving you control over it. Now, from a spiritual standpoint, people have the fear of going to hell, especially, amongst Christianity. People have I think what it comes down to is a fear of non-existence, right? Regardless of the form it takes, because that's irrelevant, right? Regardless of the form it takes. Neville Goddard described this phenomenon perfectly when talking about, changing your beliefs, right? Coming from a spiritual standpoint. Neville Goddard described this perfectly in his book entitled, Your Faith is Your Fortune. Right? And it reads, if you are dissatisfied with your present expression of life, then you must be born again, right? As it says in John 3:7. Rebirth is the dropping of that level with which you are dissatisfied and rising to that level of consciousness which you desire to express and possess. You cannot serve two masters, or opposing states of consciousness at the same time. Taking your attention from one state and placing it upon the other, you die to the one from which you have taken it, and you live and express the one which you are united. Man cannot see how it would be possible to express that which he desires to be by so simply a law as acquiring the consciousness of the thing desired. The reason for this lack of faith on the part of a man is that he looks at the desired state through the consciousness of his present limitations. Therefore, he naturally sees it as impossible of an accomplishment. One of the first things man must realize is that it's impossible, in dealing with the spiritual law of consciousness, to put new wine into old bottles or new patches on old garments. This is, you cannot take any part of the present consciousness into the new state, for the state sought is complete in itself and needs no patching. Every level of consciousness automatically expresses itself. To rise to any state is to automatically become that state in expression. But in order to rise to the level that you are not now expressing, you must completely drop the consciousness from which you are now identified. Until your present consciousness is dropped, you will not be able to rise to another level. What he's trying to say is, when changing a belief, be it spiritual or not, fear will surely come, right? Because a single mind can't truly believe in opposing ideas, right? Especially when we're talking about, spiritual beliefs. You can't believe in opposing ideas in one mind. Therefore, you have to pick one. Hence him saying, you can't serve two masters. You have to pick one. And if the new belief contradicts the first, right? If they're opposing ideas especially, fear will surely come because it's death to your current identity. It's death to your current way of thinking and your current actions and your current habits. It's death to that identity and the birth of a new identity with new habits and new ways of thinking. So fear will come because it's a death to your current identity that believes in a thing, right? And it's a shift in consciousness to believe in a new thing. The important thing to note is that fear, once again, is just an alarm to make you aware of this potential change and to call to action for you to make a decision, right? So whether you're going into a new job or starting a business or changing your personality or working on yourself, fear is just fear can be a sign of progress because your ego is just saying, hey, something's trying to destroy me. Something's trying to change my habit, which is exactly what you want when you're developing new habits and when you're developing a new identity. Fear in that way is such a natural thing and, in my opinion, a very useful tool. It's a shame that we keep trying to suppress this emotion and throw away this emotion when it's one of the most useful tools, one of the most useful emotions in existence. And it's constantly trying to throw itself at us. It's saying, here I am, use me. I'm your evaluation tool. I'm your magnifying glass. I'm your microscope, use me. And we try to throw it away. Quote me on this. Fear is the bridge between love and hate, right? If love is an accepting emotion, right, that can cause blindness, right? And I think I've covered that in another episode, my Love and Limerence episode. We covered how love can make you blind, right? And I think that's a well-known thing, a well-known phenomenon, right? So if love is an accepting emotion that can cause someone to go blind, right? And hate is a rejecting emotion that can also cause someone to go blind. But love is something of acceptance and hate is something of rejection, right? Then fear is an emotion of evaluation, right? It's the magnifying glass, because it's something that forces an individual to view a situation at that present moment and make a choice. The crippling effects of fear, right? The panic, the bad things about fear, the bad things that people experience about fear are merely the consequence of indecision. It's what Napoleon Hill calls drifting. So if you don't like the side effects of indecision, then embrace fear, aka evaluate the situation, the problem at hand, the thing, evaluate it, and make a choice. By now, I hope that you've gained more knowledge on the subject of fear and how to control the dynamic of the relationship that you have with it. All that is left for you to do is take conscious action toward resolution. This is Big Talk. Thank you for listening.